Okay, welcome back, and now we're going to move into chapter 21, which concerns pretty much biodiversity, and this is the one where you want to go save the planet, and I'm hoping you're enjoying all these short and sweet lectures because I could have made it in one big one, but I made short ones that you could watch on your own leisurely pace. So let's get into it. So biodiversity, just remind yourselves of, is what we have is biological variety. Now we have all these different species coming together and thriving in an area, and how they interact with each other. We talked about that's ecology. Now all that's important because you know how we have the living and the non-living things come together, that makes up our ecosystems. Now when we start to lose some of our living stuff, we lose certain species, what we can see is we can have the ecosystems collapse. I just read an article on Science Daily, where they're talking about how they're starting to see some ecosystems collapse, and what will happen when that happens. Will people even notice? Will people even care? I don't think a lot of people will notice or care because they don't know about it, because this is something ecology seems to be the stepchild and not really talked about much when it comes to your biology courses. Now, if we do have collapse of ecosystems, we're going to see some changes. We're going to see food costs go up. It will be harder to maintain clean air and water because a lot of these ecosystems are actually cleaning up the air, are really important for carbon dioxide recycling. We're going to see probably lose some life-saving chemicals because the rainforests are our natural pharmacies. So we think we need to really pay attention to things like species extinction rates. Like we are seeing species go extinct at a rate faster than we've never seen before. And when species go extinct, we start to see a decrease in biodiversity. Now, one of the biggest ones that we've probably seen the most change in is rainforest because of deforestation. We've lost about 20% of the Amazon rainforest in about 40 years, which is kind of scary. Maybe it's 30, I can't, maybe that's about 40. I just can't do math. And this is one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet. So we need to make sure that, because sometimes there's a lot of species we haven't even discovered yet, and we're not going to be aware that they're gone to there. So this is a video that kind of goes to that topic. Now, there's different types of biodiversity. There's the genetic and chemical diversity. So the genetic is just a variation of genes in the pool. If you don't have a lot of variation within the species when it comes to certain alleles and stuff, it can lead to where you get like a stagnant genotype and phenotype, and they might not be able to adapt to a changing environment. Now, chemical diversity is the variation of the chemicals made within cells. So this is where I mentioned like nature's pharmacy is the rainforest, and if we get rid of that, we might not be able to use that. You've seen the big push of essential oils. Well, if we lose a lot of our plant diversity there, you have a problem. Now, ecosystems have a lot of diversity on Earth. We went through both the marine and the terrestrial ones in the last chapter, and we've actually seen that we're starting to get rid of some. You've seen a lot of our prairies in North America were replaced some by crop fields, and a lot of cities are taking those places. Now, we do have a wide diversity. It's predicted about 8.7 million eukaryotic species, but we've only identified so many because it takes a while. There's a discovery process, the whole naming process, and we do identify about 20,000 a year. But it makes you wonder what we haven't seen and what's actually gone extinct before we actually discovered and named it. Now there's going to be different patterns that you're going to see. So this is just showing like the diversity of the number of species per an area. And you can see certain areas are really diverse, and those are the areas that we really should focus on, those hotspots. Not saying like Greenland and Northern Africa or Northern Alaska are not important, but your diversity of your species is going to be in these warmer areas, and we really need to make sure we pay attention to them. Now, one thing you might see as a species if it's an endemic species, so we only find it in one location. And if that's what happens, it's once that ecosystem goes down, you're never going to see it again. One example is the blue jay, and we only find it in North America. Now, what we see is if a habitat has a lot of heterogeneity within it, it's going to have a lot of different niches. And sometimes those niches will be kind of similar, so then if a species gets dislocated, it can easily adapt to another one. And It might have the more ideal conditions. If you have the better conditions, you're going to have more diversity. That's why you see a lot more diversity in the rainforest compared to the tundra, like you see in this image right here. Now, closer to the equator is where you see more of the diversity. We also have a greater energy input because you have more direct sunlight. Now, also, if we lose regions, we also lose a high loss of biodiversity, so it's a give and take. Now, how can we go through and recognize that it's important? Well, as I mentioned, for human health, we use a lot of these secondary compounds to use as medicines, aspirin, codeine, just to name a few. A lot of antibiotics we generate from bacteria and fungi. I talked about how we can make insulin using bacteria factories. So that means we need to make sure that we don't totally kill off everything and, with that human first attitude, because we get a lot from them. Now, we have a heavy influence on agriculture because, like I mentioned, we have to feed all these people, but we got to make sure we're not overusing the land. We do have that seed vault in Norway, but once get kind of scared because it's kept at such a low temperature naturally due to the proximization to the Arctic Circle, but that's been showing to warm up. And if we lose all of that, we'll be pretty much screwed because that's like our backup if everything goes bad. So we need to make sure that we're actually keeping everything in track. And then wild food sources, the ocean and fish is a big source right now. And we have seen like these ups and flows, and now it's being more regulated because overfishing was a problem at one point in time. And we're starting to see these sustainable farming starting to happen. This is an example of fish farming. I forgot which area it was, but it's just an example of what it might look like. So that's all for this part. So there's some review videos and then the slides.